Okay, hi first of all. Well, actually today I should say hi, goodbye, because it's Saturn. It's the end of things. But Saturn is probably the most, next to the Sun and the Moon, it's a really important planet. When we look at the traditional meanings of Saturn, it's the planet of karma, of old age, of restriction and limitation. It's the grim reaper of hardship and difficulties. So these are the traditional meanings of it, but in those they're sort of fixed statements. Those are sort of like branches on it, sub branches on a tree, but they're not the function. They don't. They're associations. There's so many associations to Saturn and so many different ways to interpret it. But on a physical level, Saturn is the limits of you. It's the limits. It's the end of things. So, on a physical level, it's your bones, your backbone. Specifically, it's often referred to as your knees or your back, but it can be your teeth. It can be any joints. It can be any bones. It's the bones. So okay, so we start with Saturn being bones, and the second factor, another physical factor of Saturn is you have to think where's the end? Where do you start, and where does the rest of the world begin? Where's the end of you, and the beginning of the rest of the world? It's meditation, but it's significant. Who are you? Where is the end of you? Where is the edge of you? The end of you? Oh, so the end of you, it's the edge of your skin. Anything you're concerned about that's further out from the edge of your skin is other people. It's the rest of the world. It's not you. And you may have an attachment or identification. It's not you. We're our spirit, but our ego in our body and our life. Saturn represents the skin, the limit of our body. So really, the true image of Saturn should be just a bag of skin holding up a pack of bones. And there's the body, the weight of the body. You can throw in some muscles and some gut to fill up the rest of the body, but Saturn represents the bones and the skin, the limits, and the backbone and the structure of it. So the idea of backbone and associated to character and backbone is linked up to Saturn. We often hear of Saturn as the planet it's the planet of limitations and inhibitions. So whatever inhibits us, restricts us, limits us, inhibits us, that inhibiting factor is part of the process of Saturn, where Jupiter is the expansive factor, how far you can take things, how much you can see, how much you can do. Saturn is the limit of what's real. Where's the limit of what you can actually do? Now, again, traditionally, Saturn's given to the role of father, the authority figure in the family. Although in some modern astrology books they will give Saturn to the mother, however, I still hold Saturn to the father. And it's the most distant of the planets that you can see. It's the slowest moving of the planets you see. It takes 29 it's almost 30 years to go around once. We'll only experience, if we live long enough, 3 cycles of Saturn in a lifetime. So in the cycles of Saturn, they're really 29.5, but they were often considered 20. It's the idea of 7 years good luck, 7 years bad luck, 14 to 28. It really was an association that's linked up to the Saturn cycle. It's really 7.5 year cycles. where there's different phases where the difficulties or the challenges come up. The problem, Saturn in your chart, Saturn's where the inhibition is. Saturn is where the restrictions are. Saturn's where the work is, where effort's going to be needed to be made. So making an effort, energy is Mars. Doing things is Mars. Saturn has a serious side. It limits all the energy you can do, so you can control it and direct it and get something done. So I'm a little spaced out today, so I'm just going to jump around with associations until this clicks in a little bit better. But inhibition and ambition are two sides of the same coin. They're both attached to each other. To be ambitious, you almost need to be inhibited to have to fix the inhibition to justify what you're doing. So Saturn represents your ambition, your work, your accomplishments, and your inhibitions, or your lack of accomplishments. So we have Mars, how we're putting out energy. We have Jupiter under the desire for experience, the understanding of experience, and the limits of what you've actually done, what you've accomplished. We all have, in every day, we have 24 hours of experience. The senses are going, the body's moving, things are going on, and we accumulate these. And this is our sum total of our matrix of experience. So, but I mean, these get differentiated as Mars cycles go by, as daily cycles. Everyone has similar timings, but often very different specific experiences. And if Mars in a car, if Mars would be the gas pedal, and Saturn would be the brakes. Jupiter would be the steering wheel. So this point of what have we done with our life? How old are you? How many years have you lived? How old are you was Saturn question. You know, but since it includes inhibitions and restrictions, the idea of restrictions, of being held back, of being frustrated, running into delays, these are Saturn. Mars says, I want to climb that mountain. Saturn says, you're not strong enough. Mars says, I got to climb the mountain anyways. Mars says, you got to wait. Saturn says, you got to wait. So the Saturn is always the voice of the father, the voice of caution, inhibition, caution. In a way, it becomes the symbol of patience. Where Saturn is, you have to be patient. You're going to run into inhibitions where Saturn is. You're going to run into difficulties where Saturn is. But these difficulties become what inhibits us, but also what challenges us to overcome the inhibitions. Yeah, another body function of Saturn, like I say, I seem to be jumping around a lot of different ideas, and I just got to bring them, they're all part of it. I just have to bring them together for us. But the Saturn's also your hearing. Listen, the ability to listen. You have to quieten things down. You have to stop the noise. You have to stop things. You have to restrict things. You have to control things. You have to listen, to be able to listen, to be patient and listen. And the ear is probably the only organ of, well, you can close your eyes, you can close your mouth, but you can't close, it's hard to close your ears. You have to block your ears, but it's hard to block out sound. It's hearing everything. Unless it restricts, the hearing gets restricted, that's another thing. But this idea of personal inhibition, limitations, how we run into it, the difficulties we're going to run into in life, the problems we have to deal with, these are all Saturn concerns. But the point I want to make is it takes effort, it takes Martian energy to go do something. It takes Jupiterian wisdom to understand what needs to be done and what's appropriate to do. But Saturn is the basic mechanics of what has to be done to get accomplishment. If you take on a job and you don't do it, you take a job, you ever had a boss that isn't really capable, is in a position too big for himself, then he gets disrespect. He's not accomplishing things. He's in a position beyond what he can hold, what responsibilities he can hold. So the idea of Mars being able to climb any mountain and Jupiter being able to guide it and encouraging it to go for more, Saturn is saying, okay, go for it, but be prepared. This is the key word of Saturn, be prepared. How prepared are you for today? How prepared are you for tomorrow? How prepared have you been in your life? How prepared were you to find the job you got? How educated were you? Jupiter thing, how much education, how far did you go with your studying? How far did you go with life experience? What experiences have you got? What have you accomplished to work with? What have you done with your time? So Saturn becomes the principle of self-restraint, holding yourself in. I guess you would call it self-discipline would be the primary function. How much discipline have you got? How much discipline have you been imposed? Has it been imposed on you? How much discipline have you imposed on yourself? How well can you work? How efficient can you be? Can you accomplish things, or are you avoiding them? So this ability of having a good job, being able to do it well, getting respect for doing it, these are all Saturn issues. But negatively, not having a job, not having a good job, not doing something you want, not doing it well, not getting respected. Whew. It's like you're playing on the baseball team, you get hired to be on the baseball team, but once you're there, you don't prove to be as good as everyone else, so you sit on the bench all the time. And everyone else is getting the glory for having done more discipline and worked and been a little bit better. So there's a very competitive world out there. To accomplish something, if you're trying to do something, Mars, you're going to push and you're going to affect other people. They're going to push back. There's going to be all kinds of things that can happen. You're going to be pretty defensive if you can block out the attack. If you can block out other people's attacking you, that solves a lot of problems. If you can be defensive enough to work efficiently or effectively enough that nobody can blame you or yell at you or scream at you, wow, you've solved a problem with dad, with mom, with the boss. All of these things, boy, it's better to be doing something than being attacked and not doing it that well and then getting all the complexes, the inhibitions, the depressions that come from not being able to do something. So that there's a really depressing, inhibited, restrictive, bored, frustrated side of Saturn. But wherever you get depressed, it's actually telling you what work you have to do. Like, what's the solution to boredom? The solution to boredom, you got to do something, and you forget about being bored. Kids get alone, they're in a room by themselves, there's not any toys or anything, they're sitting there, and they have to think what they want to do, and they make up some game they can do, so they start playing it and get along with it, and they get rid of their boredom. They pass the time. Passing time, Saturn. We usually see it as an inertia, as a restriction, as a limitation, as a delaying force, as a crystallizing force, where Jupiter's the expanding force. Understanding expands, even misunderstanding expands. Saturn restricts and limits. It delays, it holds back, it restrains, so that it makes us work and put extra time, again a Saturn factor, extra time on the efforts we're making for something, so we can actually accomplish something. Otherwise, it's all just Yahoo and bravado of Mars and Jupiter. Mars and Jupiter together, when they're negative, it's like war. Saturn and Jupiter together, it brings more peace. It brings more wisdom to things. So what's the expression? Young men go out and fight wars, and they're doing the fighting. Old men sign the treaties for peace.